When using Nav Easy Security is permission sets built based on some data. It can either be recordings or it can be builder permission that is like the traditional way, except we offer a lot more features. Every time we add something to a permission set, we will also have the ability to do a additional permission based on the source code analysis, and that one is constantly updated. So if the code changes, you can update the source code analysis and it will actually update the permission set. There is an ability to actually override permissions, and in that way you can reduce permission down to a lower level if necessary. This one is typically important for indirect permission, and it's really only typical with the item table that is done. We also have some quick security permission sets. They're actually built based on object properties, so they can't be maintained directly under the permission sets, but you change the object properties and then it will calculate it. The other part like that is object level security. There's again one permission set that is based either on object properties and some general settings in the security setup. I'll take a look at a few of the permission sets inside Easy Security in here. I'll take a look first at one of the converted ones coming from Microsoft. It will be the sales receivable permission set for posting documents in here. We have lines down here under permissions, and for anything that have what is called a permission set detail, that's almost all permission sets. This data is only read-only, so you can't change it in here. You change what is being built or used for building this permission set. There's two things. One is recordings, and another one is builder permissions. Builder permissions is the one converted from standard NAV. Standard NAV only allow you one object, and it allows you a level of access out here. So this permission set is converted based on this one. So you can now change it. So if you actually would need in the item to have direct read permission, this data is now editable in here. So in that way, it is possible to change the data in here. So as I would change this one to a direct read in here, I will see my permission string also changes. My permissions inside here haven't changed yet. I will have to do what is an update of the permission set. This one will now apply the calculation, and I can see, of course, in here that I now have a direct read permission, as my builder permission was saying in here. The builder permission can also be used to a lot more in here. If I want to create a new permission set, I will do one that actually is super data for the human resource. I'll go to my builder permission, and I can specify ranges in here. So my first table in that range is 5200, the employee table, and the last one is 5299. This object don't exist, but it didn't matter for the way that we use our builder permission. You can have both beginning object and ending object that don't exist in the database. It's a great way of catching a whole range, for example, for an ISV solution, where you basically will have from a beginning to an ending number in here. In this case, I actually want to do full access, read, insert, modify, and delete permission in here. Execute, of course, don't make sense for data. You execute code, you don't execute data in here. But after adding this record for builder permission, if I now go back and update my permission set, I'll see I get 21 tables, everything that is within that range in here. And this update function will always run when you do a publish. So you only have to do this specification of a range once. If a new object is later on added in that range, it actually allows you to automatically have those objects added also in here. One of the things we can do in here is actually also use a source code analysis in here. And to apply that, we will actually go in here and do what we call add related permissions in here. So if I do this one, and I now go back and update my permission set, I see I get 30 permissions. So as I have an employee, I have a lookup to a postcode table. Because that's a table relation, I'll be able to get that read permission to see the data in here. The same thing would actually happen for indirect permission for flow fields, and in that way it's possible to build some very precise permission sets in here, and that will constantly update in the future. So I'll make another example in here, and I'll actually use my ability to edit a customer in here. If I go look at builder permission, my customer table is 18 in here. And I want to have insert and modify permission on that one in here. Without doing anything else, this of course will only give me one record that is like a traditional NAV permission set in here. If I go back to my builder permissions and say that I actually want to add the related permissions in here, and I now update my permission set, I get 43 permissions in here. A lot of them are read permissions for table relations in here. So if I need to be able to modify a customer, I should be able to see the list of payment terms. I also have a lot of flow fields on the customer record, and I'll get indirect read permission. Indirect will allow me to go in and see the total, but it won't allow me to drill down and see the entries in here. The source code analyzer do one more thing about permission sets, because if I go into my builder permission and say I actually want to be able to also run a page in here, and it will be the customer card, page 21 in here. Default, I will have execute permission, and that's of course the only thing you can do with an object. Reading, inserting, modify, deleting is something you do with data in here. Adding this object in here, when I update, I now get one extra permission in here, and that will be to execute my card in here. But again, you can actually go in and add related permissions in here. This one will add execute for fact boxes on the customer card. So as I now update my permission, I can see I got quite a lot extra permissions in here. And there is a lot of fact boxes on the customer card. And especially if you add an ISV solution that adds a new fact box, you don't really have to do anything. This source code analysis will actually go and add this additional execute permissions in here. So the source code analyzer and the way it improves on manually typed permissions is quite important in here. The other thing that is being used for building permission sets is recordings up here. And if I take a look at one of the permission set that is delivered with Easy Security, the one about posting an invoice, for example, a sales document post invoice, I can see there's two recordings out here. You can have as many recordings as you actually want to build a permission set. So if you have a long process going through maybe 3 steps, you can make 3 individual recordings. If you get a permission error in the future, you just add another recording for that process where you needed a permission error for in here. So in this case, I will have these 2 recordings that this one is built on. This recording have permissions in here, and you can actually change this manually. We don't necessarily recommend you do that on a regular basis, but you can both insert and delete records or change records in here. So if you by accident go through a process and you insert an item where you should maybe only have modified an item, it is possible to reduce in here. But a better approach is typically to just not use that recording and doing the proper process, it can be very hard to know what's related to that one process in there when you just remove a single permission in here. Another thing is when you actually post a sales document in here for shipment, one of the things I will see if I go here and look at this recording, I can see that during this process I modified my item, basically adjusting the last purchase price on the item in here or last sales price on the item. So the only thing we can typically detect is that you need to modify the item. Because of that, a user that posts shipments can also modify an item. There is in the code a way of assigning permissions. When a code has permissions, a user can have indirect permission. And that's exactly the one thing we will do with a builder permission. On top of the normal permission, I will go assign this builder permission in here. And this one has one important feature checked out here. It is that it will override permissions out here. So it means whatever permissions I get, even future recordings and everything else, I will never get more than indirect modify permission, no insert, no delete, and so on in here. So that's how you will be dealing with things related to the code that typically a recording can actually not catch in here. But let's take that recording that I have in here and actually see that the one about posting that we looked at before in here, I can go and improve on that permission set in here. So this sales quote order invoice post in here. I can go and add this recording code in here. And I will add the part about posting an invoice in here. And since it's actually the same, I'll have a sales document ship also in here. So these ones are just recordings that are now attaching to this permission set. I'll see it's now have 106 permissions and it have 2 recordings in here. If I update this permission set, I used to have 106 permission, now I have 384 in here. And there's quite a lot of extra table permissions in here. And there's also object permission, of course. The recordings delivered with Easy Security include also the object level access, the reason for the 97 objects in here. If I take a look at this permission set, I can actually see that I needed read access to payment terms. I had some, based on a source code analysis, it added some additional read. I needed a read for location and many other things in here as I actually were posting a sales order or shipping a sales order in here. So these recordings that has been done here already actually helps improve these permission sets. The other thing, of course, was that all the things needed for the code to do this is of course being added in here also. This enables a whole new level of security about object level security in here. Most permission sets that are created inside Easy Security will be using this way of building them. But there is a few that actually don't have it in here. So if I go in here and find the one where permission set detail exists, being no in here, I will see the one where this one is not the case. The super permission set are always maintained manually, and actually you can't even change it because it just needs to be like it is. There's 4 permission sets for quick security, and there's one about free objects. These permission sets are being built based on another setup. I'll take a look first at the quick security in here. And you can see there's quite a lot of permissions in here. It's basically a whole setup allowing you to build initial access for people out here. This one is built based on object properties, and as I look at it in here for quick security, if I have read-only full access or no access, the tables will be added differently to the quick security permission sets. Even individual objects, and I don't have anything that is not full access currently, but I could go in and say that my check report should actually be no access. That means that will be removed from the quick security. So quick security is always built on the object properties, and you can't really take a copy of them. You build this minimum access, and then that's what you use after that. The other parts, the last permission set, is the object level security. This one is used for very precise security for segregation of duties. And in that way, we're building one permission set with access to objects in here. We can, for each object type, control how this is actually being built in here. By default, we don't have any reports. We'll have all code units and all pages and no XML ports in here. Again, on top of this, the object properties are actually used in here. So if I go down here and take a look at it, and I look at my report down here, I will see that I have object level permissions in here on my check report. That means it will not be included with everything. I can go here, of course, and add individual pages also. So if I didn't want that people to have access, I can go in and in object level security out here, add this checkbox out here. So now that page would actually not be included in here. There is, of course, a lot smarter ways to find that. So if I wanted to go in here and say I want to find anything related to finance, and I'm looking for both reports and pages, based on the source code analysis, I can now see all that, all the objects that use those tables out here in relations. Those ones I can add to a limited access. So in my list I looked at before, I now added 138 objects in here. We can, by the way, use the same for quick security, and maybe you wanted to take exactly the same objects away also in quick security in here. So as I now come back and look at my object properties, I'll see quite a lot of pages and reports, all with no access and the object level security checked in here. One of them being page 16 in here. These permission sets are normally updated automatically during a publish, but I can actually update them manually in here. But I'm just going to do a publish of permission, and I will actually go take a look at what the result will be at that time. See, the quick security and the all permission is now being updated. So the permission set are being recalculated based on the most current source code analysis in here. Changes are now being written, and only those records modified are being changed in here. So permissions were now successfully published. And instead of actually looking at the data inside EC Security, I will go take a look at what is called live permission sets out here. We had the permission sets that were built automatically in here. The QS data, for example, and the QS objects in here. We can actually look at the changelog entries. Microsoft have hard-coded those tables in the last many versions, and I'll actually be able to see there's several records in here being deleted from these changelog entries, basically because I took these objects away inside this one in here. Same thing would also be possible to find in here based on my all three objects for the segregation of duty level of security, that I can see that I actually deleted the execute permission on those ones also in here. The changelog is quite a nice thing actually to be able to see what happened with the real data in NAV, but you could also go and compare this with restore points and things like that one. But in general, the way we build permission sets makes it possible to do something upfront, and we will keep it working with easy security, that you don't have to, every time you change a little, you just have to manually go do something again. Both the object level security when new objects are added automatically, and also the source code analysis that will update an existing permission set if a new table relation is added or similar in here. So the permission sets are really recalculated during this publish, and it's based on these two things, recordings and builder permissions, and then all the extra things that you're adding, source code analysis and overriding permissions. And there is these special permission set, all based on either object properties or, in the case of object level security, also the main settings in the security setup.